The morning sunlight danced across the polished brass buttons of Lieutenant Jonathan Hawthorne's scarlet tunic as he climbed the broad stone steps of Westminster Crown Court. His imposing figure turned heads among the usual crowd of barristers and clerks, unaccustomed to seeing a Queen's Guard in full ceremonial regalia amid the solemn gray suits of London's legal elite. Even children tug at their parents' sleeves, eyes wide with wonder. But for Lieutenant Hawthorne, this attention was routine. 8 years of service had taught him to embody the symbolism of his station, the transformation from soldier to sentinel, from man to monument. At 6 feet 2 inches, with a lean frame carved by years of discipline, and his tall bearskin cap adding further height, Hawthorne was unmistakable. He wasn't scheduled to be at court that day. His testimony in a minor burglary case wasn't due until the following week. But an urgent call from the Crown Prosecutor's office changed his plans. A witness had failed to appear, and the prosecution requested his presence immediately. He had seen the burglary while off duty, a chance encounter, and now he was here to confirm his statement and return swiftly to Buckingham Palace. The guard at the security checkpoint eyed his uniform with curiosity but respect. "Don't get many of Her Majesty's finest here," the man remarked. "Duty calls in unusual ways," Hawthorne replied with a calm, practiced neutrality. Inside the courthouse, the ceremonial red of his uniform stood out starkly against the dark oak and black robes of the courtroom. As he entered Courtroom 7, conversations hushed. The audience turned to absorb the striking contrast, the living embodiment of tradition among modern legal proceedings. Hawthorne seated himself quietly at the back, posture perfect, hands resting gently on his knees. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Edwin Markham," the clerk called. Judge Markham swept into the courtroom, every bit the figure of authority. At 58, with silvering hair and an air of superiority, he exuded dominance. Known for his intelligence and sharp tongue, Markham had a reputation, brilliant but difficult. His eyes scanned the room with clinical precision until they landed on Hawthorne. There was a flicker of something, curiosity, annoyance. It was gone as quickly as it came. The Morrison case commenced. The prosecutor presented charges with professionalism, calling witnesses to confirm the defendant's presence at the scene. Hawthorne, the final witness, waited his turn with stoic patience. But as the proceedings continued, Judge Markham's focus seemed to drift. Again and again, his gaze returned to the scarlet figure in the back. Then, abruptly, Markham rapped his gavel. "Before we proceed," he said, eyes locking on Hawthorne, "I must address a matter of decorum. You there, in the costume. Would you care to explain your attire in my courtroom?" A ripple of surprise coursed through the gallery. Hawthorne rose smoothly. "Lieutenant Jonathan Hawthorne, Your Honor. Queen's Guard, 3rd Battalion. I am on duty and due to report to my post immediately after these proceedings." Markham's eyes narrowed. "And you deemed it appropriate to appear in full ceremonial regalia rather than civilian attire? This is a court of law, not a pageant." "With respect, Your Honor," Hawthorne replied, "regulations require me to appear in uniform when representing the regiment officially. This minor case hardly qualifies as official military business," Markham scoffed. "No, Your Honor, but I am scheduled for ceremonial duty immediately after." Yes, standing still while tourists take pictures," the judge interrupted with disdain. Murmurs rose. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. "The bearskin hat is particularly distracting," Markham continued, hardly respectful to these proceedings. "The cap is part of the uniform, mandated by royal decree since 1815. Removing it would be a breach of protocol." Markham leaned forward, his tone growing sharper. "Tell me, Lieutenant, is your training limited to standing motionless and marching? Or do you engage in actual thought?" A wave of discomfort washed over the room. Hawthorne's voice remained even. "My training includes tactical, strategic, and legal education under the Military Justice Act, Your Honor." "How impressive," the judge sneered. "Perhaps you'd care to remove your ridiculous hat in this courtroom. Or does discipline not extend to basic courtesy?" "I'm currently on ceremonial duty, sir, and underarms. Headgear is thus required. Markham's facade cracked. Let me be clear. In my courtroom, I determine decorum. I find your presence and responses disruptive, bordering on insolent. Your Honor, the prosecutor interjected, Lieutenant Hawthorne is here as a Crown witness. His testimony. Sit down, Mr. Collins, or you'll join him in contempt. Turning back, the judge leaned in. Tell me, Lieutenant, have years of blind obedience made you incapable of thinking for yourself? Or is that why you were chosen, for your silence and obedience? The tension surged. British military service emphasizes both discipline and independent judgment. Your Honor, Hawthorne answered, unfazed. The Queen's Guard comprises decorated soldiers with distinguished service. How quaint, Markham chuckled bitterly. Did they give you that speech with your medals? Participation trophies for standing still. The Distinguished Service Cross was awarded for actions under fire during a civilian evacuation in Helmand Province. The Queen's Gallantry Medal for disarming an explosive device near a school. Silence fell. Hawthorne didn't elaborate. He didn't mention carrying wounded children under sniper fire or defusing a bomb with 200 lives in the balance. Those memories didn't belong in public. His quiet dignity said enough. Your combat fairy tales don't impress me, Markham muttered. Section 68 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice affirms ceremonial duties as vital to public trust and continuity. European courts concur, as seen in Hemmings v. UK 2007. Markham shot to his feet. Are you lecturing me on the law? I've spent 25 years on this bench. No, Your Honor. Merely responding to your questions. I find your presence and your conduct contemptuous. I am holding you in contempt of court. The room gasped. Hawthorne stood still. Your Honor, the Contempt of Court Act requires proof of willful disrespect or obstruction. I have displayed neither. That right there, that's your contempt. Arguing with me. Hawthorne remained calm. Perhaps, Your Honor, you should review Section 14 of the Judicial Guidelines on Temperament and Impartiality. How dare you? Markham seethed. I've forgotten more law than you'll ever know. The tension snapped. In a fury, Markham grabbed his gavel and hurled it. Time slowed. With the grace of a soldier honed by years of danger, Hawthorne's hand flashed up and caught the gavel midair. Gasps echoed. He stood perfectly still, the judge's weapon now in his gloved hand. Assaulting a serving member of the armed forces is a criminal offense under Section 39 of the Criminal Justice Act, he said evenly, placing the gavel on the clerk's table. This act also constitutes judicial misconduct under Section 27 of the Courts Act and breaches Canon 3 of the Judicial Ethics Code. He removed his cap. Before joining the Guard, I served as a barrister in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. Law degree from Oxford. First-class honors. The courtroom erupted in whispers. I maintain legal credentials and engage in continuing education. What I witnessed today meets the threshold for judicial misconduct. Security officers had begun moving. Hawthorne turned to them. Officers, what you have seen is an unprovoked assault by a sitting judge. This qualifies as a Category 2 offense requiring intervention. Markham blustered, but the courtroom clerk confirmed everything. Every word is recorded, she said. Verbal abuse. Physical assault. 2 elderly veterans stood. Commander Alan Briggs, Royal Navy, retired. I witnessed everything. Colonel Marcus Ellery, Royal Marines. I second the account. Markham's face turned crimson. This is a setup. I'm being targeted. Section 31 suspends protections when a judge commits a crime in open court, Hawthorne reminded him. The door opened. A distinguished woman in robes entered. Judge Helena Whitmore, Chief Magistrate. I received an alert. What is the situation? The clerk handed her the transcript. Judge Whitmore scanned it, her face hardening. Judge Markham, you are relieved of duties pending investigation. Security, escort him to chambers. Markham tried to protest. You can't be serious. The transcript speaks for itself. Assaulting a witness, mocking military service, this is not a lapse. This is a violation. As he was led away, Markham's shoulders slumped in defeat. Judge Whitmore turned to Hawthorne. On behalf of the judiciary, I apologize. Thank you, Your Honor. I understand Judge Markham's behavior is not reflective of the bench. He checked his watch. With the court's permission, I must report to Buckingham Palace in 40 minutes. Of course. We'll take your statement later. Court adjourned. Hawthorne exited. The veteran saluted. He returned it crisply. An hour later, he stood outside the palace, stoic proud. Tourists snapped photos, unaware of the storm he had weathered that morning. Back in court, the Morrison case resumed under a new judge. Markham awaited a disciplinary hearing. Word of his misconduct spread. Other lawyers came forward with similar stories. His career, once gilded, now stood on the brink. Meanwhile, a brief commendation appeared in Hawthorne's file. Maintain dignity of the regiment while upholding justice. Sometimes, the ones mocked for their silence carry the greatest strength. Behind the red tunic and bearskin cap was a man of honor, intelligence, and courage. And in the quiet dignity of his stand, a system was forced to reckon with itself.